So that way we can record it and have it available for anyone who couldn't join us. Good morning again. My name is Shauna Warner and I'm with Neighborhood Services. I'm going to help out with today's meeting. You are encouraged to ask questions during the presentation. You can use the chat or raise your hand and we will call on you. So again, thank you for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Jill Bushbacher with Economic Development.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. Good morning. Jill Bushbacher with Economic Development. Thank you all so much for joining us again. I just want to thank my colleagues who've been involved in this project, Ambika Adhikari with our Planning Division and Community Development, Shauna Warner, and with Community Development as well, our Arts and Culture team, Engineering and Transportation, Communications, and Sustainability. This is a joint effort and nothing's more important than our feedback from the community in these kinds of exercises and these kinds of projects that we work on together. And we would just like to kind of, let you know a little bit about where we're at with it, get your feedback today, and then there'll be further next steps that we can talk about as we go along here today. Just to remind everyone, the guidelines are to help us define the look and feel of the area and further support our Innovation Hub initiative to enhance key employment areas, promoting new investment, jobs, and placemaking, which is an economic development initiative overall. And it's not meant to be regulatory, but can be used to guide city and private development as new projects come about in this area. And many of you, I'm sure, that are joining us today, I know have worked with us along the way in the last few years in this area. And we really appreciate all the work that you've done and input that you've given to date. And this is just kind of a next step in that process and to help realize the vision for this area. So now I'd like to turn it over to our very capable colleague that we've hired to help us with this project from Architecton, John Kane. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Good morning, everybody. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm also here with my partner, Tom Riley, and Brian Esparza, who've been working with me side by side on this project in the city. So it's been a great team and getting a lot of great feedback. Looking forward to what we're going to learn from you today as well. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry, give me just a moment. It's freezing.
Sure. It needs its coffee. Yeah, okay, while she's pulling that up, can we, Shauna, can you pull up the survey about who's on the line with us this morning? If you can fill this out for us real quick, just gives us an idea who's here. It'll really help. Thank you.
I'm sorry, my functions aren't working on my computer to advance it. Brian, could you pull up, are you able to pull up the presentation if I stop sharing?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay, let me stop sharing. I apologize, but it is completely frozen no matter what I seem to do.
It was working just a sec, huh? Just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you for filling this out. This is great.
Brian, were you able to click on the share screen?
I'm actually kind of having issues too. I won't connect. It's I'm trying to pull it up. I'll be right there.
Thanks everyone for your patience. We appreciate it.
Let me see if I can actually just do this real quick.
If not, John, I've got it ready to share if you want.
Yeah. Okay, let me just give it a shot here. Everybody see it?
Yes.
Screen? Is it in full screen?
No, but we can see the, maybe you'll have better luck just scrolling through it.
Yeah. Does that work?
Yep.
Let me just see if I can, there we go. How's that?
Better. That's better.
All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so we did the introductions. Just what we're going to go through today is kind of a quick overview of the guidelines itself, and specifically, obviously, the Smith Innovation Hub. Talk about its existing character. We're going to look for some ideas from you too to make sure we're hitting this right. Go through kind of the goals and opportunities, some what we're calling catalytic strategies, and kind of how the guidelines are organized. And then we'll go through each of the chapters briefly and kind of talk about the goals and some of the strategies that we've been exploring. And again, as Shauna mentioned, we're looking for ideas and thoughts. So as I go through this, feel free to throw questions, comments in the chat, and we'll try to answer them along the way. I'd rather have this be a conversation than a presentation. So just obviously knowing where this is in the city. This is part of the initiative that was approved back in 2018, and this opportunity to set a vision for this hub, as Jill mentioned, for developers and the city as projects come online. These guidelines are here to kind of help us or help you create kind of a direction and a vision for everybody to kind of plug into to kind of create that bigger whole. So it's a really exciting kind of project to be working on to kind of set that vision. Again, it's a policy level document. And I think one of the main things that we're trying to make sure of is we want to maintain upon the building character and kind of what's there, not about tearing things down and starting over. It's about how we infill, how do we add, how do we kind of enhance what's already there. There's going to be short-term goals and long-term goals, and this is hoped to be a living document as we move through. So the existing character we've been exploring it's really interesting. What's fascinating, obviously, is that it's a light industrial in the middle of a lot of amazing things around the perimeter. And we're looking for ways to make those connections and energize and make more synergetic connections between what's around it and what's already in it. And then as we start plugging new projects in it, how those can kind of help strengthen those ties. But obviously the marketplace, we've got ASU really nearby, we've got freeways. It's a variety of kind of great things to connect. And then already what's happening inside the hub is really quite fascinating in terms of the businesses that are occurring. A lot of makers, a lot of fabricators, artisans, automobile industries, contractors, really quite great mix already. So it's really on its way. What we'd like to ask while we're here is for you to kind of in the chat, what are the things that you see that really kind of embody the character of this district? We're really wanting to make sure we're looking for the kind of the grassroots and the authentic kind of aspects of this. And those of you that are in the district or nearby probably have some thoughts about what that might be. So if you wouldn't mind, if you can kind of within the chat kind of give us some of your thoughts on that. It would be really helpful. It could be everything from the streets, the type of businesses that are occurring that you're seeing happening within there, any historic structures that you think are really, really critical to the character, even more abstract ideas, other connections that you'd like to see. That'd be really helpful.
And then John, not
So
sure if you see the chat. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom. I just opened it up. It's great.
Yeah, I think, Kate, absolutely. How this connects to the arts community has been a big part of the discussion, and you'll see a little bit more of that as we go into the presentation. And Nicholas, we were struck by the scale of the businesses there. There's a unique sort of pattern happening within the district. I think that really starts to define it for me as I kind of move through it. We'll go ahead and leave this question open as things occur to you, to please just kind of pop them in there as we go through the presentation. Just want to make sure we're getting your input.
So the overall goals and kind of opportunities that we're seeing for this particular hub, there's an opportunity for a lot of recycling and upcycling from light industrial byproducts and art. So the fabricators, the artisans, contractors, the people that are already in here, there's an opportunity to kind of look for some synergy between that, looking to figure out how to bring vibrancy and activating otherwise unusable spaces. And then again, this leveraging of synergies. We've been hearing this a lot about how do we connect the various people within the districts and nearby and really amp that up. And then creating the visibility and awareness, obviously, for those within the hub. Excuse me. So what we've been talking about is, there's the kind of short term, what kind of strategies can we kind of use to help kickstart things? There's already been some amazing kind of remodels within the district, some adaptive reuses that I think will really kind of set a really great kind of tone. And we're going to try to build upon that, but we're hoping that could be some other things such as harnessing the public and private investments. We think it's really important to create a business community association to create those connections and start the conversations. Look for pilot demonstration projects. So there's some infrastructure projects that have been identified. So how can we kind of do those in a way that, again, are unique and can kind of set a vision? One of those is like, and I'll get into this later in the sustainability chapter, but something like green infrastructure, where we look at kind of treating rain water, stormwater management a little differently, and kind of more symbiotic relationships with the urban forestry program and adding shade. Get into that a little while. And then obviously storytelling, communicating these kind of great projects, kind of how they are working, and again, getting the word out about what the potential is. Excuse me. The guidelines are broken up into these kind of separate chapters. What's really interesting is a lot of these chapters are very integrated and cross-reference one another all the way through. So what might be in sustainability is also possibly in the building design and a lot of other chapters, so back and forth. But quickly, sustainability, kind of looking at everything from kind of the infrastructure to the buildings to recycling, a variety of different strategies and goals there. The idea of mixed use. So one of the big things that we're really interested in is the zoning allowing multifamily to plug into the light industrial. To, again, be one of the big strategic kind of moves that will help kind of transform this into a pedestrian friendly environment. But we're not talking about tearing down the warehouses and building, big market rate type housing. What's important is that we're looking at kind of the uses that can plug into this, that we're already starting to see, that are much more complementary to what's already there. So more workforce housing, artisan housing, studios, and a variety of different kinds of uses that will help and interact with the rest of the existing projects. The idea of activating the public and private spaces. So we're looking at, we have large street right-of-ways that some of it's unused, some of it's purposeful in terms of truck maneuverability that we don't want to lose. But we're looking very strategically at how we can activate and kind of optimize that. And then also on the private side, where the buildings are still surrounded by a lot of land, whether it be parking, retention, unused asphalt, et cetera, giving suggestions about how that can also be used and activated to help, again, promote this more public and pedestrian oriented type environment. The idea of art integration, how the art and the working with the artisans themselves to help us kind of transform this. They can be a really key player in helping this transition happen. The building design, again, the idea of adaptively reusing the buildings versus tearing them down and starting over. And we give a lot of guidelines about how the different approaches to do that, whether it's be daylighting, how we might do additions that come forward and kind of encroach the public right away. To, again, engage the pedestrian experience. The idea of gateways and signage, thinking about how we can brand, again, possibly working with artists to help us kind of create that branding, and then how we can kind of layer that through the district in a way that, again, kind of creates that cohesiveness and overall conceptual relationships. And then the last part is the multimodal transportation and pedestrian circulation. So again, trying to transform this from primarily truck and vehicular transportation and transit options, but weaving in multimodal. So bike lanes, amping up the sidewalks, making them more friendly and safe, and a variety of things. But again, without compromising the truck circulation systems. So a little deeper dive as we get into each of the chapters. And again, please, as we're going through this, if you have thoughts, concerns, questions, please put it in the chat. We'll try to respond here as we go along. As we also look at the guidelines, what we're trying to do is also make sure we're aligning with a lot of the existing programs that the city has already put in place. Already a Tempe's Climate Action Plan. There's the Urban Forestry Program. There's this idea of a 20-minute city program and others that we want to make sure we're referencing. So this document will also link to and provide those connections to all this other work. There's a lot of master plans that have been done and other things. So trying to find this document is this kind of one-point source that can kind of pull all these pieces together. But again, the idea again of creating walkability and transportation options, maintaining the existing character, but maybe bringing the buildings up to more current sustainability codes and leveraging existing assets. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of byproduct coming from the manufacturers and the makers and the artists, and how can those be used and upscaled or upcycled, you know, for building skins, artist materials, et cetera. The mixed use guidelines are about, again, taking these existing large flexible buildings that maybe once were a factory or a warehouse or a fabricator, and then what can happen within it, and different kinds of uses that, again, can augment the area, can create some synergies and some things that maybe be missing in the district. Again, looking for places for artists to work, other fabricators to help those artists, a variety of different uses. But again, the primary was trying to figure out how to kind of tactically insert into residential projects, again, more workforce, artisan-oriented type housing in the spaces in between, or possibly or maybe a revamp of one of the existing buildings. Excuse me. The idea of activating the public and private spaces again. How do we create meaningful spaces in between, outside of the spaces? You know, we have this amazing weather, and when the weather turns nice, we all want to be outside. So providing guidelines about how we can kind of create those using building orientation, site orientation, landscape trees, very simple ideas to kind of take unused space and really quickly make that meaningful and usable for both property owners and then the overall district itself. This idea of art integration, again, it's not necessarily about just public art and locating it on within the district, but also engaging the artists to help us create the identity, create the graphics, create kind of the kind of spaces that are needed so that we can have the artists stay in Tempe. One of our big goals, based on, again, what I think the Tempe Arts and Culture Plan, how can this district really help that happen, and what's missing, and help us kind of figure out what those are. Working with the existing building owners, do they have space available that the artists can use, rent? So there's just a lot of really amazing kind of opportunities and discussions that are we're starting to get into that are really exciting about that. The building guidelines. So again, looking at these buildings, already great examples of some that are already being converted, really wonderful projects, and setting those guidelines in terms of how that can happen. Hopefully inexpensively. This isn't about spending money. How can we, again, use what's already there in a really creative way and take advantage of these big, open, flexible volumes. We're also looking at the ability to add height very strategically within the districts to, again, optimize the functionality of these buildings for typical, maybe even warehouse uses. Some of these might be lower, so allowing those kinds of things to happen. And then this kind of intensification of the sites, a lot of open land around that can be kind of infilled and optimize site values and performance. The gateways and signage, again, how can we kind of treat, we're not saying we're the guidelines that are established by the city are there, but can we kind of evoke kind of a character and quality in terms of how these things are done that reflect the kind of the character and the aesthetics of the hub, so that again helping kind of unify it and create kind of a there for kind of the creatives and the fabricators and the artists in the businesses within this district. And then at the end here, the idea of the multimodal transportation. So again, how do we, if we're going to be able to plug in the residential, we still need to make it pedestrian friendly. We need to get bikes. There's a great master plan that's already been done for the infrastructure plan that's identified bike lanes, some street improvements, sidewalk improvements, extensions, replacing the existing street lights with LED lights, which gives us an opportunity to add banners, add Wi-Fi support, and all the other great things that can happen. Looking for those opportunities where all of these things can come together.
So there's a good
I think with that.
Yeah, there's a good discussion in chat, John, about.
Oh, good. Oh,
yeah.
shoot, I was interrupting me. Sorry.
That's all right. You're on a roll. Joy's got some really good points that I think the staff has actually jumped on too. And Joy, I would say that in looking at the hubs, we're looking at another one too, and I think 6 more were identified. But I believe that Smith Innovation Hub is way ahead of the rest, and I think part of that goes to the unique character is really evident when you come into your district. And I think some of the property owners and businesses have also pushed that along. The city can probably go into more detail, but an infrastructure plan has been underway for a while that's identified, I believe it's Smith as a multimodal street that will is targeted to get some improvements that will help. I really like your emphasis on going to a more permeable option on the paving. There's a lot of new options out there, and I think that's a suggestion we'll want to make sure that we get in here. And I think it's also part of the City of Tempe overall sustainable strategy reports. And then I think, yeah, Jill pointed out that we were told by staff that it's very likely that the next leg of the streetcar will come up on the north side of your neighborhood, which will connect you to, the Greater Valley with a car-free option to get around.
Thanks, Tom. I would just add to that about the infrastructure plan. We're well into that project, and it'll be going again to council on March 3rd for a second hearing, and we're very excited about it. As some of you know that have participated in the public meetings about that project, it identifies opportunities for sidewalks and lighting and bike lanes and better drainage and some specific kinds of infrastructure that could be improved in the area that'll really make a difference and not only bring it up to code, but really enliven the area in ways that really haven't happened in the past here because it is a former county island. And so as the city has annexed it in, it needs to come up to city standards. So we're excited to see that plan move forward, and there's a lot of great opportunity to enhance this area with the recommendations of that plan. That plan can also be found at the tempe.gov/SmithHub website. So if anyone wants to look at it there, they can as well.
So Nicholas has a question about the dip at Smith. I know that we've heard that the infrastructure plan does address some of the flooding issues.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I think what we find exciting, and John mentioned that the chapters are really sort of intertwined. Like you can't really talk about infrastructure without talking about sustainability, and you can't talk about building standards and gateways without talking about public art. And much in that way, what we've heard is a lot of the infrastructure plans about addressing the drainage issues also talk about things like bioswales and more natural ways to deal with the large amounts of water that we get in short bursts of time that will help create a better sustainable approach to how that water is handled rather than just running it down a drain. sure and go back here and make sure I didn't miss anything.
You tell them there was early conversations about Smith becoming kind of potentially kind of the center gathering zone. I think there was an early suggestion about this hub needing kind of some kind of a center. And I'm curious if is Smith the right place? Are there other places within this that might be a good place for kind of gathering and kind of a town square, kind of, if you will, but in an industrial kind of way?
But one of the catalytic strategies is what you have right now is authentic and grew out of the individual people and efforts within the district, and that's what makes it so appealing. And we want to make sure that whatever happens here continues to be authentic and it continues to be driven by the people in the district. And so we've talked about specific ways that could happen. And one of the issues is being able to get together casually as a group and have those conversations that will help push that forward. So I think when we talk about a place to gather, it's both for formal events, whether they're art fairs or trade fairs, or just showing off the cool things that are happening in the district. But also those casual interactions where you might be out taking a walk at lunch, or making your watch happy that you're getting in your steps. How do those things happen, and how do they help create that community that we think is possible here? Oh, I think, Jill, you might have the answer to Kate's question.
Absolutely. So Kate, that website, tempe.gov/SmithHub is a good resource. And you're also welcome to call me directly or email me. I'm pleased to work with anyone that would like to speak with us about this project. We've been working in the area with stakeholders for about the last 3.5 years. And it's a really important area, pilot area that was identified in our innovation hub strategy for economic development. We see lots of opportunity for Smith Hub. So glad to have you join us. You said you recently started paying attention. We're very glad to have you join us and are open to those suggestions. And I can put my email in the chat, and I'll put my my phone as well.
And then John alluded to also the fact that part of the beauty of your location is that you have all these resources literally next door. And the question is can we enhance those connections through pilot projects so you don't feel like you have to get in your car to go have lunch in the marketplace or to go visit a park in the neighborhood to the south. And then Joy, we've really been wrestling with this idea of what would that central space look like? Would it be a sort of a traditional square or plaza, or is there an opportunity to take advantage of sort of the large right-of-ways, and that becomes more of a linear experience that might work for a Food Truck Tuesday or a maker fair, where you kind of can get everybody together and people can kind of pull stuff out of there. I mean, we drive through those streets and we just think there is really incredible stuff happening there. There's art, these artists that are putting out these car remodels and people building stuff. We know that there's one group in there that's got a studio that's doing social media content. How do we make that more visible? Because the stuff that's happening is really exciting. So whether that means more visibility into the buildings or creating a spring or fall exhibit where you kind of come show off to your neighbors. We think there's plenty of content there. It's how do we create a space then that you can program yourselves and kind of share what's going on in your district. So any thoughts on that are very appreciated. Yeah.
Oh, I like that comment, Amy. And also I want to remind folks, you can click on the raise hand option and be unmuted and speak to us as well in this meeting. I think we have that option as well, correct, Shauna?
Correct. You are able to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amy, on the street paving, there's this adaptive street program that the city's kind of working on, which could do some temporary kind of ways of kind of enhancing the street and creating plazas or enhancing intersections. So those are definitely some of the things that we're looking at. And again, maybe not trying to set it, but can we test it and throughout the district? Could be really kind of fun. So it's a really good idea.
And John, I think Bonnie Richardson's on the line with us. Bonnie, if you want to pipe in, we're glad to hear you provide more information on that initiative.
Hi, yeah, I'm happy to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, so we are in the process of developing our adaptive streets implementation guidelines and looking at ways for having quick temporary ways of enhancing the use of the right of way. And that includes for pedestrians, bicyclists, businesses. So this started out of a need for using our streets more during the early COVID days. And now we're looking at, well, how can that be used so that you might do a mural in the street or in an intersection, and there might be some days when you use that space as public space for a festival or an outdoor activity. Also looking at applications for crosswalks or bulb outs, which actually shorten the crossing distance in an intersection. And that way it tends to be safer for pedestrians, but also you're drawing attention of the driver. So the driver's more aware of the area. And it can also be used as a community building tool and something of a way of identifying your area. So we've got lots of examples of things that other cities have done. And I'm happy to talk with anybody if you're interested in learning more about that.
Thanks, Bonnie. And Bonnie, is your contact information on the website that Shauna put in for Adaptive Streets?
It is. So you can get me through my
Great.
email or by phone.
Great. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
John, I think one of the questions we wanted to check in with folks on too was if there's anything missing or anything more that we're, we failed to include in our discussion here today. We just want to make sure that we're being inclusive of everything we can that's appropriate.
Thanks, Jill. Absolutely.
Sure. And feel free to raise your hand or to put something in the chat, whichever you would like.
Well, and Shauna just published a link. One of the other things is we know that everybody can't make 9 a.m. on Friday morning. And if you have other people that you know in the district or that are interested in the district, please feel free to share this link. They'll be able to see this presentation. And I think there's links to some of the reports that we're using. This slideshow will be in there, the deck. And I think that what we're trying to do, and Kate, I don't think you're late to the party at all. You're right on time. This is the time to try to find some leadership within the hub and some people that are interested in making this district kind of get to the next level we all believe it's capable of, and make your workplace and for those of you that live near it, your residences just a little bit better and a little bit more connected with the community.
Any other questions or comments, concerns? Thank you so much, Kate. We feel the same.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then what I'll wrap us up with then is just to remind everyone that, again, as Shauna said, you can go onto the website and take the survey and provide more comments, or send it on to others that couldn't join us today. You'll also be able to see a recording of this webinar at the website for the project. And if you want to go to that slide, if you don't mind, just to remind everybody, the last slide, tempe.gov/SmithHub. And then just so you all know, we'll be going to council with this in approximately May, and we'll be going to the Development Review Commission as well over the next couple of months. And, you know, certainly internal staff, city feedback from these surveys and the public meetings. And we had a public meeting on Wednesday for the other area that's within this project, the Maker District design guidelines. So a lot of exciting things going on for these two areas. And if you have other ideas that you'd like to share with us, you know, please reach out to me. Please provide your feedback in the survey. And we just really appreciate your time and all of your input.
Absolutely. Thank you.